This is Joy Foote. Welcome to Pine Mountain, then and now.
Before I get into today's murder story, I want to take a minute to talk about ghosts. In the month of October, I am especially open to hearing ghost stories. And while I don't have a ghost story to tell you about today, in the past week I have heard 2 stories of ghost signs. What is a ghost sign, you ask? It's an old hand-painted advertising sign that has been preserved on a building for an extended period of time. There are 2 places in town that you may spot these signs, but the lighting has to be exactly right for you to see them. The first one is at the Irvin Native Building. That's next to Chipley and Main. When the exterior paint was removed from the building, a ghost sign was revealed. If you look close, you can read the Ballard's Obelisk Flower advertising sign. It's so neat. For the second, stop by Dakota's counter. If you catch the light through the window just right, you can see the old Rose Cottage tea room sign still painted on the window. That's so spooky. Now let's get into today's murder story. I'll start by setting the scene for you on this very fateful day. It was May 23rd, 1906, when the population of Chipley was about 1,200 people, which is not that far off from the population of Pine Mountain in the 2020 census. The town had been preparing about 10 days for a speech to be given by the Honorable Hoke Smith. He was running for governor. Hoke Smith was a personal injury attorney who specialized in railroad accidents early in his career. I kind of consider him to be like a current-day personal injury attorney for car accidents and slip and falls, except he focused on the railroad. I think you get the idea. Anyway, Smith later entered politics and chaired the 1888 Democratic National Convention, and between 1893 to 1896, he was the Secretary of the Interior for the United States. But let's get back to the speech. The rally was located in a grove near where the Pine Mountain Baptist Church stands today. A few hundred folks from Harris, Troup, and Meriwether counties put on their holiday attire and gathered to hear the speech. On the outskirts of town was Virgil Irvin, age 22. He was a farmer and lived a few short miles from town. Mr. Irvin was a newlywed, having been married for only 6 months. Also on the outskirts of the crowd was Joe Hastey, who at one time owned a saloon in Columbus, but was currently a livery stable manager in Chipley. Mr. Hastey was unmarried and 34 years old. Both men were well known and were considered peaceable and law-abiding citizens, although there was an indictment pending against Irvin for illicit distilling. That's moonshine. On Wednesday morning of May 23rd, Irvin came to town and put his horse team in the stable, of which Hastey was the manager. Later that day, when Irvin paid the stable bill, Hastey reminded him of a former bill of 15 cents, which he said was still unpaid. They exchanged hot words. People who heard them anticipated trouble and reported this matter to the city marshal, who talked to the 2 men and apparently smoothed everything over. Not long after, however, Irvin walked down to a fruit stand where Hastey was standing, said something to him, and as Hastey responded, both men pulled out their pistols. Irvin fired the first shot at Hastey, who returned the fire, the crowd falling away to escape danger. Hastey soon fell, mortally wounded, and died immediately. His body was pierced by bullets from both .32 and .38 caliber pistols. And remember that point later. It's going to be important. Meanwhile, Irvin ran and was pursued by friends of Hastey, who fired a number of shots at him, and before he had gone more than 3 blocks, roughly 200 yards, Irvin fell dead in his tracks, having been struck by a number of bullets. In all, about 65 shots were fired. You heard right, 65 shots fired. The strange thing was the fact that Hoke Smith decided to change the location of where he gave his speech that day. The wind was blowing, and Smith didn't want to face the wind. So instead of being on the west side, which would have had him facing the wind, he decided at the last minute to speak with his back to the wind from the opposite side. As a result, 2 spectators in the grove were slightly wounded by bullets because they were located near where Smith was supposed to have given his speech. Do you follow that? So many moving parts. All this to say, once the bullets started firing, Hoke Smith was unable to finish his speech and immediately left for Atlanta. Now remember when I said that Hastey had 2 different types of bullets in his body, 32 caliber and a 38 caliber? That's what led to the next escalation in this duel. It is said that others besides Irvin fired at Hastey while the difficulty in the grove was in progress. As a result, warrants were issued against half a dozen people in Chipley, charging them with murder, including one Mr. John McGee. Mr. McGee was tried for his life and charged with the killing of Joe Hastey. The trial in Harris County brought a large crowd and significant interest. One of the dramatic incidents of the trial was when Ed Hastey, a brother of Joe Hastey, fainted dead away while on the stand. Can you imagine? But at the end of the trial, Mr. McGee and the others charged in the murder were all acquitted. It was so timely that Joe Hastey had filed a life insurance policy a few days prior to the duel, and a payout of $2,000 was issued just 26 days after his death to his estate, which is assumed to be his widowed mother, Julia. And in case you were interested, the Honorable Hoke Smith won the governor's race. This murder story has a lot of moving pieces, so let me recap. Irvin and Hastey got in a dispute over 15 cents. They both fired their pistols at each other, with Hastey dying immediately because Irvin fired the first shot. Irvin runs away, but the town chases him, and he dies from multiple gunshot wounds about 200 yards from where the fight started. The fact that Hastey died from 2 different kinds of bullets is the reason why other people were arrested for murder. Consider for a minute. Irvin and Hastey were in a gunfight with each other, and they each had only 1 gun. You would assume that Hastey should have only had 1 type of bullet wound, right? But because he had 2 different bullet wounds, that means that someone else shot at Hastey at the beginning of the gunfight. That's why there were 6 other arrests for murder. And remember how Hoke Smith changed the location of his speech? Consider that he may have been seriously injured or killed had he been in the area where the stray bullets were flying. He basically dodged a bullet. Pun intended. The aftermath of this duel did not end on May 23rd. In next week's episode, I will share yet another murder story which involves a different brother of Joe Hastey, along with a prominent citizen in town, Mr. T.T. Murrah. So stay tuned. Nightmare on 190 is gearing up for an epic 2024 season with all new routes, all new sets, and all new scares. The main haunted attraction takes place each and every Friday and Saturday night from 8 p.m. to midnight this month. Make your plans to come and enjoy one of the best haunted houses you'll ever walk through. And be sure to check out their media page. The screams are real. For more details and ticket pricing, check out www.nightmareon190.com. The Sunnyside Annual Festival is this Saturday, October 12th, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Sunnyside Community Center. It's going to be a good time with over 40 vendors, including food, music, artists, and activities and games for the kids. So come and enjoy the fun, and I hope to see you there. For more details, please check out www.sunnysidecommunitycenter.org. Today's episode was brought to you by Tours with Joy, the guided walking tours through Pine Mountain. There are 2 tours available, the Wild West Days of Chipley and the Beautiful Murals. Check out tourswithjoy.com for details. Special thanks goes out to the Chipley Historical Center for fact-checking this episode. The beautiful art and music for the show was created by Sillybug Studios. My next episode is on Wednesday, October 16th. Hope to see you around town.